Hello, and welcome to another episode of Rico'S Rants. I'm your host, Rico DiGiorgio. So, I'd already had a request for this film, and by pure coincidence, chance, whatever, this was requested the day before yesterday. And yesterday, the day after the request, the director of the film passed. So, in tribute to Jonathan Demme, I'm going to do the classic Silence of the Lambs. Alright, ranters, let's get ranting. So, I remember seeing Silence of the Lambs when I was maybe 13, maybe 12 years old. And I remember before I put it on, my dad said, "You're going to be scared." It did not scare me, but it definitely shaped my perception of horror films as well as just regular good films. Because while it can be scary for a lot of people, it didn't scare me. It just made me look at horror films in a different way. You know, horror films, scary movies, thrillers, suspenseful stuff. This has those qualities, but it's such a good movie that you kind of, for me, kind of forgot that I was watching a horror film, essentially. It just came off like a really good mystery. It still holds up. It still has arguably one of the most charismatic horror movie icons ever. Now, granted, Hannibal Lecter was already used as a character in the film Manhunter, directed by Michael Mann. Now, I'm not going to lie. I love Hannibal Lecter. I love the majority of the films. Manhunter, to me, is not the greatest of them. And the actor who plays Hannibal Lecter, the first actor to ever play Hannibal Lecter, was not Anthony Hopkins. It was Brian Cox. Scottish actor. Seen him in X-Men 2. You've seen him in Red. He's in The Ring. He's that guy where you're just like, I know that guy. How do I know him? Well, he was the first Hannibal Lecter. They took some liberties with the character. They changed his last name. Instead of L-E-C, it was L-E-C-K. To be fair, the books written by Thomas Harris, the character itself is very different. For instance, he actually has an additional sixth figure. He has maroon eyes. He's got like short, stubby little teeth. I mean, and that's the reason why I'm making a comment about the literary source as well as the film is Anthony Hopkins was a fucking genius when he more or less made Hannibal Lecter his own creation. He certainly earned his Oscar. Bear in mind, he only has about 11 minutes of screen time total for Silence of the Lambs. You know how crazy that is? I mean, he is a supporting actor, but not many people go and watch this movie specifically for Jodie Foster or for Ted Levine or for whoever the fuck else. I can't think of who else is in this movie. They're going specifically for Anthony Hopkins as Hannibal Lecter. So, if you have not seen the movie, I'm going to spoil it. But I will try and keep some things unspoiled. It's been out for, what is it, almost 26 years? It'd be like at this point me spoiling Casablanca or me spoiling The Godfather. There's a certain amount of time where I'm allowed to, like, it's been out for a long time. It won Oscars. You had your chance to watch it. And you know what? If I spoil it, go fucking see the movie anyways. It's still a phenomenal film because even if I do the best spot on Hannibal Lecter impression, which I can't, I've tried, I can't do it justice. I can tell you every single detail of the film, and you'll still watch the film and still be amazed. And that's definitely a tribute to Jonathan Demme. Jonathan Demme was fantastically directed this film. I don't know I don't know much about Jonathan Demme, unfortunately, but I loved Philadelphia and I loved this movie. And my understanding, he was more of a comedic director, and so this was sort of his branch out into doing something more, one, mainstream, and two, something that was against his type. It's also a tribute to Anthony Hopkins, like we talked about, as well as Jodie Foster as Clarice Starling. Those three elements make this movie. And yeah, you can go for Ted Levine and his character is Buffalo Bill. I can do a decent impression of Buffalo Bill, but I may throw it out later. So the plot is women, particularly big women, are being killed. It looks like a serial killer. He's specifically fattening them up, and then he's not fattening them up. He's starving them so their excess fat makes the skin sort of loose and stretchy. Well, I won't specify why. That's something that you'll have to decide. Clarice Starling is an up and coming FBI agent. She's a rookie. She's starting out. This would be her first mission assignment. And in order to figure out how to track down the killer, how to think like the killer, that they don't know who it is, she specifically interviews and sort of has one-on-one chats with a renowned, famed psychiatrist who is also a serial killer in his own way. Even worse, he's a cannibal. And this is Hannibal Lecter. So, a lot of the best scenes in the film, the scenes that chew the scenery, so to speak, pun intended, is Jodie Foster and Anthony Hopkins one-on-one with a glass wall between them, a see-through glass thing, and they're talking to each other, and he is just he's finding out all about her, because that's his rule. Like, you tell me things, I tell you things, and he gives her just enough for her to figure it out by herself. And he easily could tell her, oh yeah, it's this guy, but he's just like, he thrives on, one, fucking with her, two, he's absolutely curious about her, he's enthralled by her, and he is attracted to her, and he is, in his own fucked up way, helping her come to the terms with her own background and damages and insecurities and trauma. I mean, he is actually shrinking her. And it's bizarre to watch because she's terrified of him. But like us, the audience, we are terrified of him, but he's so charming, he's so polite, he's so intelligent that it lets us drop our guard, and it makes us want to trust him. When people ask me, like, if you had to actually hang out with a serial killer or a horror movie icon, Freddy, Jason, Michael Myers, Chucky, whoever the fuck, I always pick Hannibal Lecter, because no matter what, even if he's going to kill me, it'll be the most interesting conversation I've ever had, and he'll probably cook me a delicious meal. It may be me that I'm eating, but it's not a bad way to go. I mean, Michael Myers stabs you. Freddy Krueger fucks with you in your dreams and then kills you in your dream. Jason kills you in many other ways. Chucky, yeah. So yeah, Hannibal Lecter. I mean, he'd wine and dine me. Who else doesn't want to go being wined and dined before that? So, couple things I have to talk about for the inspiration for Anthony Hopkins as Hannibal Lecter is that he He took this from Charles Manson. This is everything I'm going to tell you is absolutely true. This is these. He has said these publicly. He is. They're all sources. I'm not going to provide the sources, but you can look them up anyway. He took the fact that when Charles Manson was speaking, he never blinked. Every single time you see Anthony Hopkins, Hannibal Lecter, speaking, he doesn't blink. He just stares right in. It's always a close-up, with it, which is very much a Jonathan Demme thing, where it's a close-up of his face, and you see his eyes, and the eyes are wide and kind of tilted. It's almost like a Kubrick stare, and he's just staring right into us. And he... the thing about him is, yeah, he's a therapist, he's a psychiatrist, and he's devious. But he is able to look through us and already know the answer. He could ask us, tell me about your childhood trauma. That's my lame attempt. And he already knows it. He can just fucking see it in our eyes. He also based, this is also true, he based Hannibal Lecter on tarantulas and reptiles. Like the way they moved and the way they... they fidgeted and they were very calculating. I mean, he apparently stared at creepy animals as a source for this role. Which I also will interpret as people have reptiles and spiders and other insects. Stuff that's not really pet-like, but people like them. And that's my whole point, is that he's something dangerous, but you like him. You want to kind of hang out with him in a fucked up way. Exactly what I was talking about earlier. Some other amazing decisions that Hopkins did was, there's a classic line, I'm not going to do the line justice because it's a longer line, but he says, I ate his liver with some fava beans and a nice Chianti. He said he pronounces it Chianti. Pronounced Chianti. But his whole thing was he mispronounced it to just be a little off. The character itself, from the book source, is from Italian and Lithuanian nobility. He speaks multiple languages. He's smarter than anyone else you know. He knows how to pronounce Chianti. He is fucking with us. And to add to that effect, after he says, with some fava beans and a nice Chianti, he goes and does this weird slurping. That was improvised. That was improvised on the spot. Since then, he does it to fuck with people. Anthony Hopkins doesn't give a fuck. Anthony Hopkins is arguably one of the last older actors that we have. When he passes, it'll be a sad day for us all. Just like Jonathan Demme passing. Jonathan Demme, again, I have not seen enough of his work. But Silence of the Lambs will always stay with me. In particular, talent definitely ran his family. I was a huge fan of his nephew's film, Ted Demme, Blow. The irony, unfortunately, is that Ted Demme died of an overdose of blow. After the film, ironically enough. Playing basketball. I guess if you're going to do drugs, don't do sports at the same time. Yeah, so it's just sad. A talented family, just another one. Granted, Jonathan Demme, as sad as it is, he was 74. And he was struggling and fighting cancer. 74 is still young. And he's still talented. I mean, he probably could have made another couple films. And I would have liked to have seen them. Just to at least up my Jonathan Demme knowledge. And at some point, I may consider doing a review of Philadelphia. Philadelphia is another fantastic film. Radically different than Silence of the Lambs. So, Who's great? I I mean, do I even need to say anything more about anything else about Anthony Hopkins? No. Is my favorite Hannibal Lecter movie Silence of the Lambs? No. It's actually Red Dragon. And a lot of people, I mean, a lot of people are up in the air about Red Dragon. A lot of people say it's the last best Hannibal Lecter movie. It's true. Hannibal, the sequel to Silence of the Lambs, was okay, but it was a very different tone. Um, Red Dragon sort of felt to me a closer film to Silence of the Lambs than Hannibal. In particular, it was the same screenwriter. I mean, Brett Ratner, the director of Red Dragon, gets a lot of hate for being, a whatever. People don't think he's a particularly good director. Honestly, people forget that he did Red Dragon. I thought Red Dragon was great, and it's not a well-directed film. It's just the cast itself is amazing. Ray Fiennes is in it. Anthony Hopkins comes back. Edward Norton is great. Edward Norton does the same Clarice Starling thing, but it's a prequel, which means how many fucking times are people going to go up to Hannibal Lecter and be like, "Help me find this killer"? Apparently twice, except in the show, which happens all the time. The show is really good too. If you haven't seen the show, check that shit out. I think they canceled it. It's such a good show. Okay, so Jodie Foster earned her Oscar. Anthony Hopkins earned his Oscar, especially since he was only in it for fucking 10 minutes. This movie paved the way for horror films. Granted, there has not been too many horror films that have won Oscars since, which is why I don't really call it a horror film. It's very much, to me, it's a suspenseful mystery, and it sort of has a very neo-noir type of look to the film. It's hard to call this a horror film in the same sense that Jaws, I have a hard time calling a horror film. Granted, Jaws scared the shit out of so many people, just like Silence of the Lambs. But Jaws is such a fantastic film. You could take someone who's terrified of horror films, sit them down, make them watch Jaws or Silence of the Lambs, and they can be like, this is just a fucking amazing film. Jaws is so good, you can take the shark out of the fucking movie and it's still a great movie. Not completely. But to prove that, you don't even see the fucking shark till the end of the movie anyways. Really. And that's what this is. Anthony Hopkins is the shark of this film. He's barely in it, but when he's there, when he's not there, you're looking for him. And when he is there, you can't take your eyes off him. Same with Jodie Foster. Jodie Foster is phenomenal, and I think this was really, apart from Taxi Driver, this was her main forte into getting into I'm no longer a child actress kind of thing. This was her being, I can do grown-up stuff. Ironically enough, in Taxi Driver, she was a child. But this was, I think, her really first adult role. And she earned it, man. I gotta, throw some praise to Ted Levine, who plays the killer. Spoiler, sorry. He is so bizarre in this film. And his transformation is, he comes off like an alien, and he's cunning, and he is manipulative, and he's at the same time, a couple parts, he seems human. The whole put the lotion in the basket kind of scene. You can see he is actually not fond of what he does. He's got a young woman in a well screaming she wants her mother. and you see him fight back like tears, like put the lotion in the basket. Like he doesn't want to look at her as a human. Granted, he's a psychopath, but Ted Levine does a great job of making us feel for a psychopath. This movie challenges how we look at things. In the same sense of like watching Psycho or even the show Bates Motel. Look at Norman Bates as a damaged person instead of a psycho. Pun intended. Horror movies, the best thing about horror movies is it makes us question the psychosis of a psycho. They are human. They are just like us to a certain degree. Although, if anyone is fucking like Hannibal Lecter, please at least wait till I'm full of food that you cooked. Just don't tell me what you put in it before you kill me. Please. That being said, I want to thank the person who requested this. Ironically enough, the day before Jonathan Demme died. Melissa, this one was for you. Hope you enjoyed it. And man, I want to offer my sincere condolences to the Demme family. He gave us a movie that we can always just forever watch. In fact, he gave us many. I'm going to end the video, but shit. Do I give it 5 stars? Absolutely, I give it 5 stars. It's a fantastic film. Is it scary? No. Is it off? Yeah. And I say that meaning, like I said, I didn't get scared when I saw this, but it actually sort of fueled my interest in movies that I would actually intend to avoid, like horror films, stuff that might scare me. It made me want to watch more great films that are very dark. So this opened that door. Alright guys, love you all. Don't forget to like and subscribe and comment and share. And I guess I'll just end the video with this. Bye guys.